Hello everybody and welcome to another MMO video. Now if you're anything like me, you're constantly looking for new MMOs to try out and experience. Well, luckily, there are actually a ton of MMOs that are supposed to be coming out by the end of this year, but let's be real. There's no one else here except you and me, and I think we can both agree that no genre has as many delays in releases as MMOs. So in this video, let's narrow our focus a little bit and let's just talk about the MMOs coming out in September and October of 2024. So for you, just for you because I like you, so don't tell anyone else, I've gathered the 4 biggest upcoming releases and we'll go through them in order of least exciting to most exciting in my opinion. For more MMO related content, make sure to subscribe to my channel below, but beyond that, let's get started. So the first MMO on this list is probably the one that is surrounded by the most hype and unfortunately the most controversy. And that of course is Ashes of Creation. This is a medieval open world MMO that promises to be the next big step in the genre, sort of like a medieval fantasy-esque Star Citizen set in the past rather than in the future. It promises to have persistent worlds with extensive crafting and building mechanics where the decisions and actions players take affect the world permanently. On top of that, we're promised up to 9 different races and 64 different classes, or class combinations rather, and since the game is being built on Unreal Engine 5, it should look absolutely unmatched in terms of visual quality. Plus, since it's a buy-to-play game as well, we're promised absolutely zero pay-to-win mechanics whatsoever. Unfortunately though, the similarities to Star Citizen don't just end at the insane scope of the game. This game, just like Star Citizen, is crowdfunded and just like Star Citizen, has been in development for about a decade at this point. That's 10 years. And the release timeline just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. In fact, it's been pushed so much that the game that's coming out in September or October is actually not even a full release. It's an Alpha 2. That's right, an Alpha 2. We're still in Alpha. Even worse than that though, in my opinion, you have to pay to play the alpha, starting at $100 and going up to $120. Now look, I'm not a hater. I actually believe this game has made significant progress in the last few years, way more progress than they did at the beginning, and I'm of the opinion that it's eventually going to come out. But asking players to pay that much for alpha access is genuinely insane behavior to me. You're basically asking your players to pay you to test your game. Truth be told, I'm not very optimistic about this game because it was honestly announced so long ago, and I'm not a huge fan of how this studio is going about making it, with the constant changes in promises, the constant changes in scope, the constant delays, all the while continuing to sell increasingly expensive packages to players for a game that still isn't even really close to releasing. All that said though, to be honest, the scope that they're promising, even if it is a complete lie, it's difficult not to at least be a little excited because it really does look absolutely incredible. So if this game ever does come out, I will be there day one and so should you. But for now, unfortunately, all we've got are hopes and dreams and a $120 alpha package, and to me, that's not a very good MMO. The second game that's about to release is one that has kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and that is Ashfall. This is a post-apocalyptic survival MMO, kind of similar in premise and theme to Once Human. Like Once Human, it's a shooter MMO, but it promises to have much more complex and interesting gameplay where you have to use cover and strategy for the harder fights. This of course is a lot better sounding than the point and shoot until it dies route that Once Human takes, but in exchange, Ashfall isn't actually true open world, instead being a series of instanced maps, sort of like in Warframe. On the other hand though, the world definitely does look amazing, and even more excitingly than that, the soundtrack is actually co-composed by Steve Mazzaro and Hans Zimmer. This feels almost silly to point out, but these are two absolutely, and I really mean absolutely, insane composers who have created soundtracks for massive movies from Inception to Interstellar to Dune to the Pirates of the Caribbean to James Bond to, well, their list of credits is pretty much endless really. Now putting the visuals and soundtrack aside though, this game definitely does have the potential to make a big splash in the genre, especially how big Once Human got very recently and how much that game blew up. Unfortunately though, it can also be a big flop because for better or for worse, Once Human did just come out and people are rightfully going to compare this game to Once Human, and if it doesn't quite meet the standard that that game set, this game is just not going to take off nearly as much. Now I'm not super excited for this game or super optimistic about it since the game seems to be more focused on instanced co-op and kind of solo play rather than true MMO features, and that isn't really in line with what they're advertising it to be, which is an open world MMO. That said though, it is free to play, so I think there's really no harm in giving it a go. Third on this list is a game that's actually been released in full for about a year now in Korea and is about to get its major global release, and that is Throne and Liberty. This is a fantasy theme park MMO that's free to play and published by Amazon, which puts it in a similar boat to Lost Ark, another Korean game that Amazon published globally. This game is absolutely gorgeous with a ton of content expected on release, because again, it's been out in Korea for about a year now. The classes, which manifest as weapon combinations kind of similar to Guild Wars 2, are unique and diverse and have high skill ceilings. And on top of that, the dungeons and arenas are pretty fun and interesting. The big downside, of course, since it is a Korean MMO at the end of the day, is the pay to win, and boy, there is a lot of it. Pay to win is rampant in the Korean version of this game. Now, the developers and publishers have promised to remove all pay to win aspects and make significant gameplay changes to suit the Western audience, but the trust I have in that is low. There's just so much pay to win in the Korean version of this game. I mean, really so much. And given the history of games like Lost Ark and Black Desert Online, I find it kind of difficult to believe that they'd be able to get rid of all the pay to win permanently. That said though, all in all, it is a very fun game that could very easily have a very long lifespan similar to that of Black Desert Online in the West, provided that they get rid of the most egregious pay-to-win aspects, at least the most egregious ones. I personally have tried out the Korean version of this game, and outside of the pay-to-win, I actually enjoy myself a lot. So I am cautiously optimistic, and I will be there to try it out on day one. Okay, it's time for the big one. The MMO coming out in September and October that I'm the most excited about. And that, of course, is Brighter Shores. Now, this is a brand new MMO created by Andrew Gower, who was one of the creators of RuneScape. This was the original RuneScape, the old school one, and not the modern RuneScape 3. Now, this should be pretty evident to you immediately, to be honest, from the overall aesthetic of the game. But the good thing is, the similarities aren't just skin deep. Brighter Shores will have the same click to move that RuneScape does, and features a ton of different professions and skills, from cooking to fishing to smithing. It will also release as episodes similar to how RuneScape did back in the day. Unlike RuneScape though, which has a skilling system for combat as well, this game will actually include a proper class system, starting out with 3 different classes that you can choose from when you're starting the game. Now, the developers have stated that there will be no pay-to-win mechanics in this game, and while typically this sort of statement is met with heavy but understandable skepticism, given that old school RuneScape has managed to avoid pay-to-win pretty much entirely, it's not crazy to have a little faith that Brighter Shores could do the same thing. Instead, this game will have a subscription model similar to Final Fantasy XIV or again old school RuneScape, where most of the game's world is locked behind that subscription. This game is expected to release as early access in September or October of this year, but this is also a little bit of a misleading title. The full game will be released with the exception of PvP, but Gower's opinion is that until PvP comes out, he considers the game incomplete, so he will be labeling it as early access. That said, again, besides the PvP, we're going to, at least hopefully, be getting a full game. Most people, me included, consider old school RuneScape to be one of the best MMOs currently available. So the fact that this looks so similar to it, and the fact that it's made by the same people, is very, very promising. Personally, I am extremely optimistic, and you'd have to pretty much kill me and maybe even atomize my body for me to not be there on day one. And if this game falls short, it will absolutely ruin me. But until then, I'm very excited. And there you have it. Those are the 4 biggest releases coming in the month of September and the month of October in 2024. Now, even though there haven't been any further delays at the time that this video goes up, these are still all MMOs. So keep in mind that pretty much any of them could be delayed at any time. That just unfortunately seems to be the way that the cookie crumbles in this genre these days. And there's really nothing we can do but wait for the new release date when that happens. Anyway, that pretty much covers everything, and I know if I keep talking, I'm gonna have to start putting up clips of Subway Surfers, so let's just end it here instead. What do you guys think? Are there any MMOs that you're excited for that I missed? What do you think about the state of the MMOs nowadays? Let's have a conversation, so make sure you let me know in the comments below what you think, because I would love to hear from you all. As always, thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe to my channel below for more MMO related content. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.